Hola, hola, hola. Mm, 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 mm. Test, test, test. Okay. We're good. Let's see. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna have to boost the gain a bit. But yeah, it's fun. I should get to it. Okay. Hey, yeah, so I'm just sending out like a notification that the weekend build is starting, which I have now done. And the idea for this week is just to build something for a founder community. So I'm part of a lot of communities. One of them is a founder community. I mean, I'm not willing to mention the name just yet because yeah, this may end up not being used by them, and I don't want to create any connection there. If it ends up being used by them, that's awesome. If it doesn't, I just want to explore a couple of thoughts and ideas around this. Um, so yes, so what's going to happen on this stream is throughout this weekend, today, Saturday, today and tomorrow, I'm going to be building this particular tool. I'm going to do everything live. The idea is to show you the thought process behind this and stumble my way through it. There's a Web3 component to it. It's not like crazy, in my opinion, but there's a Web3 component to it that I'll also be figuring out. So the idea is to create a sort of community dashboard app, whatever you call it, where founders are able to log weekly updates on whatever they're building and earn points/tokens for doing so. Now, so there's a couple of things that are going to come into this. There's going to be like authentication, first of all, which is going to happen with your wallet, because so the idea is that this community is targeted at already has a coin or a token which they gave out earlier on, which all members of the community have basically. I'm not sure how you earn the token. I'll confirm that. But the idea is there's a token, and as a member of this community, you own that token. So it means that to verify or authenticate or log in or yeah, whatever, all that stuff, you have to show that you own that token, which means you connect your wallet. We write some code to check that you have the particular token in question. And if you do, you gain access. If you don't, then you are not authenticated, basically. Now, that's the authentication layer and how it will work. Of course, we would have to add some other ways to authenticate yourself, which will most likely be by your magic link. So once you connect your wallet, you could typically update your profile with like an email address and stuff, which means that subsequently you could be able to sign in via magic link using that particular like email. So that will be one of the things that we're doing. The next part of it is that there's also going to be so once you've done that, you gain access to the dashboard, and then you have access to see a feed of what other founders are doing. Now, the feed is basically a weekly stand-up like update, but focused on shipping. So the idea is to help founders get their shit off localhost, right? So when you post something, when you ship something weekly, you have to post an update about it, and that's all curated in this feed that every founder can see, and yeah, get some motivation from seeing other people do their stuff, right? So there's the feed side of it, and then there's going to be what else is going to be there? Let's see. Yeah, there's going to be the part where you also log those updates. So every week at a certain time, most likely on Fridays, we're going to run some piece of code that basically sends out prompts every founder in the community to provide their updates, right? And yeah, that seems like the basic idea right now. I'm just talking from my head at the moment. What would happen is I would go over into Notion and try to break this out into what like we are going to build, and then we'll figure things out from there. So the first step typically when I have like ideas like this is I like to have a clear sense of what I'm doing. So that would involve, first of all, outlining all the steps involved. What's the goal? What are we trying to achieve? Outline all the steps involved to doing so, and then have some kind of progress list I could follow to be sure that I'm on track, kind of thing, right? So that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to share my screen, and then we'll just dive into breaking this stuff down on Notion and figuring out what next, right? Let's see. No. I have my Notion up here on my local. Interestingly, I actually already started building this yesterday to some degree. So, but I'm gonna pretend I haven't, so that I can walk through it all from the beginning, and things can make more sense, right? So typically, I have this build weekend, and I just come in here and create a document. The last time I did it, it was for something else. I've done it a couple of times that wasn't well documented, but this time we're gonna do things the right way. So here's what we're going to do: is create a page, and it's going to be week of at last Saturday, last Sunday, today's Sunday, right? Should we today? No, it's today. Let's do today, right? So this is this Saturday. I like to add a random icon for the sake of it. What are we trying to do? The goal is that we're going to build a Web3 based community tool for a founder community. The tool will be used to what? So one, allow members share weekly updates on what they've shipped, right? And allow members see what others are working on. Let's see. Is there any other component to this? Subsequently, if this gets adopted for whatever community gets adopted for, I would eventually have to, improve on it, add some more features or functions and all of stuff like that. But if it doesn't, we're just going to do a brief run, and that will be it. So that's the goal. Let's talk more technical terms, right? I have my camera shaking. I hope that's not disturbing, but I don't think I can worry about that right now. Let's see. It's a little wobbly. It's annoying, right? It annoys me too. I can tell that this is annoying. Has to be. It's not gonna help. Streaming is hard, no? But I'm gonna figure it out. Let's see. First and first, let's just I'm still here. I'm trying to figure out the camera situation, and I will. And once I have, I'll be back. So dark. The sun is terrible. But yeah, I can ignore it for as long as necessary and just get stuff done. Okay. Yeah. So we're gonna get back to it. I was yeah, I'm not used to streaming. There's still quite a lot to learn about this. But yeah, either way, we must build. So the goal is to build a Web3 based community tool for a founder community. So, like I said earlier, I'm in a bunch of communities where, like, we're founders, and the specific community I have in mind has a physical presence in San Francisco. However, there's a bunch of us who do not have access to be there. So there's a thing done cheaply called Ship Weekly or Ship It. And so I'm creating the online equivalent of that basically for folks who are online. The goal is that eventually I should be able to add more features to this to make this as interactive and interesting and communal as possible, where it's not just you filling a form and submitting. To some degree, we can have like perhaps video demos, and potentially also like have actual online calls that are in some way synced to the tool and coordinated effectively. However, the goal today is that we're going to build this, and the focus is that the tool needs to do two things. First of all, it needs to authenticate users through membership token. And then allow members share weekly updates on what they've shipped, allow members see what others are working on, or let's say see the submissions of others. See a feed of all submissions, let's put it that way. Is there anything else we want to do? No, let's keep it this way. Now, we interact as a community on Discord. So there might be some components of this that I would try to integrate with Discord. But in the meantime, this is pretty simple, and this is the goal. Now, what do we need to do to make this happen? Let's break that down. And we'll call this the technical breakdown, right? Now, we have an authentication layer that would need, and the authentication layer basically needs to allow you connect to your wallet and then verify whether you own the token. Now, there's something called Thirdweb. I'm not sure how familiar you are with Thirdweb as a package, but that's something we can easily get done with Thirdweb. So when you go to thirdweb.com, Thirdweb is a utility tool / library, whatever you may want to call it, that helps you build, gives you utilities that you would need to build Web3 apps, basically. The component of this would most likely be using is simply the authentication layer, but there's more to Thirdweb than that. Allows you to do smart contracts, it allows you to do deployments on various chains also. But all we need is the decentralized login, right? And this is what we'll be making use of right here. So for that, we're using Thirdweb. The third component of this is we're saying we need users to make submissions, and it means that those submissions need to be stored somewhere. So there's a storage component of this. What is the storage going to look like? And for that, we need a database. Now, the ideal route would be to set up a database like Postgres or MongoDB if you're into that kind of thing. but in this case, we're going to go with Firebase because, again, it's a very simple tool that doesn't need to be complicated beyond what is necessary. So Firebase offers a bunch of services that allows you to build apps on the fly. There's an authentication layer to Firebase, there's storage, there's a database. They have two databases actually, the real-time database and then Firestore. There's a bunch of those kind of tools with Firebase. There's cloud functions as well. So we can use like the storage layer of data of Firebase really for two things actually: storing our assets as well as storing the data. So for the database layer of this, so we've identified what we're doing with the authentication layer. For the database layer, we would be going with Firebase. I'm just going to link to that real quick. It's at firebase.google.com. Now that goes for the storage layer as well, because we need to store things like perhaps profile images if we choose to go that route. And that will go to Firebase as well, right? Or whatever assets. Now, to be fair, this wouldn't be the ideal route to go if we're very serious about making this a fully Web3 based thing, but I'm not, to be honest. I'm focused on value and the utility of this tool than boasting about being all Web3 and all that. So I'm going to make concessions here and there and pull in Web3 stuff where I think it makes a difference, and just ignore the rest where I think it doesn't. And there's still the opportunity to upgrade this eventually. If we choose to, we can upgrade our data storage, asset storage and all of that to use something more decentralized like IPFS, right? But right now we're gonna go with this. Go Firebase here. So authentication, database, and storage is what we have right now. What else? So those are the major components if we really think about it. We need some way to authenticate. For this, we need storage, database. We need database layer so people can create entries, and then we also need the database layer so we can fetch those entries. So pretty straightforward. The stack to be used here, of course, like earlier stated, is going to be Next.js. Why? Because I can, to be fair. I don't get into arguments or conversations around like what tool is better than the other, because I don't think any tool is universally better than the other. I think there will be, in many cases, at least for tools that have existed for a while, there would be situations where you would prefer one or the other, depending on who you are. In the case of Next.js, I'm choosing Next.js because Next.js allows us to build this app using React. That's my stuff. And then it allows us to build the API as well in the same code base. So they have like a simple structure where your routes exist in the pages folder and then your API stuff exists in an API folder, which means you can have everything up under the same code base and the same domain. And you can easily interlink things as much as you need to. So because of that, Next.js makes a lot of sense for me. There's a bunch of other things like static site regeneration and all those things that people talk about when it comes to Next.js. In this case, I don't see us needing any of those things so far. Like I don't see those things being a major pro. So I'm not going to dive into that. Again, I'm not one of those people that like to obsess about any of these things. I just like to build tools, make sure they're useful, make sure they're performing well, and make sure the UX makes sense, right? I believe all of those optimizations come when you're sure you built something and you need to scale it and make sure it performs better, not when you're trying to just like get this kind of idea out of your head. But that's another rant. So for this, we're going to use Next.js. Earlier identified, we said we're using Thirdweb, but yeah, basically just Next.js, to be honest. For styling, I like to use, we have a bunch of options: CSS modules, SCSS, styled components. But I got like this new, to be fair, it's not that new. I just started using it like earlier this year. But lately I've been using Stitches for all my styling. Stitches is, it's a CSS and JS type solution, right? That allows you to style your components directly in your JS, so within your React components. I like it because of all the theming and the interface just that it exposes. It exposes it like certain interesting interfaces that just make it easier to do some cool things, which generally are things you need to do often. Like create variants of a component where potentially you want to have different states and you want the button to behave differently in those situations easily. It has like an API for that. Compound variants where you want to combine functionality across various variants. It has functionalities like that. And then tokens, right? Tokenization of your design system and all of that stuff. This is not a full-blown project, so maybe we're not going to dive into all of this crazy. I also have some template stuff that I would very likely use for this, but I like it for that purpose as well. So we're going to go with Stitches for styling. I'm just trying to link everything in here because I'm going to add like the Notion that later on, and I want anybody that finds it to be able to walk through whatever they need to walk through without much confusion. So let's go with that. I mean, everybody knows Next.js, but let's be thorough with it. Okay. I mean, to be fair, not everybody knows Next.js if you think about it, but yeah. I mean, but anybody that should care about it should know. Else, I don't know why you care about what I'm doing here. But yeah, okay. So now we have all of this. Generally, my next step, if it was for a product that I'm looking to monetize, would be talk to users. Since I would have talked to users before this, to be honest. Like done a lot of questioning and like just break down things. But right now, this is it's a pre-validated idea. The need is there. The solution has already been implemented, just not as well as I think it should be. So I'm just trying to make something better than what currently exists. I don't want to show what currently exists because then you find out what community it is, and I'm not looking to do that just yet. However, yeah, that's just what it is. So I know what currently exists, and I'm trying to build something better than that. So now we have this document. We have some sense of what we need to build. We have some sense of the tools needed to build them. I'm just gonna dive into like the project. I already started this yesterday night because I was up and I wanted to do something. So I'm gonna walk you through what I've done so far and then just continue from there. Typically, I would go through like a design phase where I would sketch out stuff on my notes. So generally, for most of my ideas, you would see me. This is the sketch. I doubt this is clear, but like this is the sketch I made yesterday. Like I always just do sketches on my notes to just like figure out what things should look like. It's generally how I work on these ideas and stuff. But in this case, I'm not going to do that. I already did some sketching on this yesterday and I implemented like the base UI. So I'm going to show you that and we'll just build from there, right? So out of Notion, let's push Notion to the side. Here's my Figma. I like to typically design. There's something else I'm working on, but like in this case, we're not going to design anything. So that goes to the side and we're going to focus on building. Now, here's what I did previously. 3001, I think. Yep. So yesterday I worked on this. This is very simple. So I'm using the Thirdweb has a Next.js starter. Thirdweb Next.js starter. That's it. So Thirdweb has a Next.js starter that basically says, hey, if you want to use Thirdweb in the Next.js app, you don't have to do all the setup by yourself. You could just clone this, and we've already done some small things in there to make your development process easier. So I'm like, hey, thank you. I used it. So I ran this command, initialize the repository, and I got what I got. Out of the box, you get this on your homepage, which basically allows you to connect to apps. I already connected my MetaMask previously, but I could disconnect it. I could reconnect it again. Now you will notice that this is some interesting kind of disconnect feature because it's fake. It's emulated or simulated. The truth is, if you wanted to disconnect your wallet from an app, you would want to come here and do it here. So you would want to do, I think up here. Is it settings? No, it's not settings. It's here. Yes. You want to disconnect it here. So you disconnect this and then it disconnects, right? And that's when it's real. In this, so it means like on subsequent connections, you have to do MetaMask and then it will ask me to reconnect. So I can go ahead and connect and I'm connected. Cool. Okay. It's getting a little dark. Stop figuring out what to do here, but we're gonna figure it out. It's what we do. Okay. So we have that. Now, I went ahead to set up like the layout for what this should look like, in my opinion, yesterday. And so I have like a simple dashboard layout where there's like a small sidebar with a bunch of items, home, my company, and ship it. Now, I haven't built out my company, but this is home. Ideally, what this is supposed to be is when you complete your authentication, you'll be redirected here and you would have a bunch of onboarding steps that you should follow to wrap things up, right? To get yourself set up properly. And then on ship it side, you would be able to see, hey, join hundreds of founders getting their projects off localhost every week, endpoints for valid submissions, and climb up the ladder. But so the idea here is that I want to create some level of gamification to the experience. Yes, that's something that makes on Notion. So let's go back. The idea is that I want to create some level of maintain a public leaderboard. Ranking builders by the points they've earned. The trick is I'm not sure exactly on what basis we want to issue these points, because one person comes and says, hey, we shipped an entire app this week or something, and then another person is like, yeah, we spoke to you 2 users, or we sent out a form to do something. I mean, you still kind of shipped something, but how do you scale? Like, what are the levels of shipping? Except we can turn this into a community voting type thing, where when you post your update, members of the community get to go through the submissions of others, and by ratings, that determines where you are on the board. So a key thing we need to decide here is what is the basis of according points or tokens. I'm hoping this turns tokens eventually, but let's think about them in points. I don't want to complicate anything. I like to build an MVP and then scale up. Now the MVP is giving you points, and then eventually you can substitute points for actual tokens. But on what basis are we giving out the points is an angle that needs to be thought about here. So any ideas? Let me see how many people are watching this. 2 viewers. That's exciting. If you have any ideas for how this should work or anything you think I should take note of, please feel free to shoot. Drop a message in the chat, and I'll let's build together. But yeah, off the top of my head, I think the community thing is more reasonable. Having other members of the community like contribute to how this should work. Like when you post an update and everybody likes it, or how do you control that? You need something that's foolproof. Everybody receives a limited set of likes. And they have to award it to the best 3 in their opinion, or something of that nature, or we can play the whole cumulative upvote type game, so people can upvote your stuff depending on how they feel about it. It leads to subjective. So that's something I'll figure out. And we don't have to know everything from the start, to be honest. I'm not a fan of like stalling on all the details. I think we know enough to get along. The question that needs to be answered here is, how are points accorded? I don't know how to spell anymore, but we move. and we're going to say unanswered questions. We'll get clarity, okay? Clarity comes with time. When you embed yourself in a domain enough, all the things that were not clear unravel with time. So I'm never afraid to just stay within the ring and hope that something comes up, you know, right? So let's keep going. So how points are coded is an unanswered question. I'm going to think about it. Easily, we could implement a first version that is simply, every time you share your weekly update, like that is streak based, right? So as long as you keep your streak, you keep earning points, and we can build up milestones for each streak. So if you post consistently for 5 weeks, there's something you unlock. If you post consistently for 10 weeks, there's something you unlock. We can build up like those type of things, but we can make it streak based and say every time you post every week, you get 5 tokens or 5 points in this case. But when you maintain a streak, you unlock like a major thing. So I might play around that instead, rather than like obsessing about like this. It can change at any time. That's the cool thing about code. We can like this. We could come up with a new approach and we could test that in some way. And if it works out, we could make it the thing. But right now, the thing is most likely going to be a streak-based system where for every time you submit, you earn 5 points. And when you unlock a certain milestone, you get something we would decide on. So let's say streak, arbitrary X points for every weekly log, maybe. Got a bunch of ideas in there, right? Okay, let's head back. So we're not designing. I should move Figma out of my focus range, and let's go with this. Now we have this. Okay, so I'll show you what was built. Yes, so this is what we have. Ship it, join hundreds of founders, and then this is like a card. Obviously, you can see a lot of things aren't looking great, but we'll make it great. Yeah, so 3 questions. There's 4 questions that would be asked every week. What did you ship this week? You get to provide an answer. What did you not ship? You get to provide your answer. What is next week's goal? You get to provide that answer. And then how would you rate your week? You get to provide the answer. So a good thing we can do with this is like eventually we can plot a graph of momentum, actually. Your perceived momentum versus our own calculated momentum, right? Because this is subjective. How would you rate your week? You could say it's a 5, but we could have some way of giving you our own estimated momentum, and like that could be some sort of founder check type system, like, hey, you know you're fucking up, but you think you're doing great, right? Something like that. I don't know. It's fun thinking about these things because more stuff just keep coming up, and yeah, you just work it out as you go. But yeah, so let's go. The focus right now. So typically, here's what I do. And guess what I would do right now. So let's create tasks. I like to have focuses for the next couple of minutes, hours, and then when that's done, move on to the next thing. Now, right now, we already have like the home thing kind of set up. We don't have the steps, but I'm not crazy about that. I don't like to do the easy stuff. I like to I like to work from hard to easy. Authentication is as easy as it is. Although I've done it before. I don't think I won't spend too much time doing that. The main aspect of this I need to be where the value is for any founder is, hey, see the feed, post the updates, right? See the leaderboard. So let's focus our energy there and figure out how to implement that. So first thing is we already have the ship it section, and here we want to be able to render a bunch of like submissions, right? Now the problem is, okay, so first thing, let's start with adding a submission, right? So the first task is implement add submission feature, right? And the add submission feature would basically allow you answer these questions and then add your submission to the submissions for that particular week, since it's going to be weekly based. Right. Now there's a question we need to answer here. we could simply implement a form or a module that collects that information pretty well. But to make this sticky, because I'm guessing that the chances that people log onto the web or some community platform every time is lower than the fact that they are constantly on Discord. So I'm wondering, should we add this new complexity of integrating with Discord and getting our answers from Discord and populating them here? I could do that, but I would not. And the decision is, the reason for that is it's going to blow up the scope of this real quick, and then we might spend a lot of time figuring out Discord's API, which I've never built on top. And I'm not scared of doing that, to be fair, but yeah, it derails the stuff, right? So what we're going to do is implement layer 1, V1, right? I like to iterate. V1 is going to be a simple form with these questions, with the 4 questions. And then V2, we can explore on Discord, since that's where we're already on, right? So after we do the implementation of the submission feature, we want to implement the, what's going on? Implement the submissions feed. On the submissions feed, you'd be able to see everybody's submission for the week, and you should be able to, so for implementing this, we need to do 2 things. People need to be able to view all submissions for the week and filter submissions by week. So you should be able to see, like, oh, show me what happened on this other week, on this other week, and all of that. Right. So at some point we'll move on to authentication. For authentication, we already have, like I showed you, we already have the basic aspects of that done. So for authentication, we need to be able to connect to wallet, which is already done possible. Then we need to check if user has membership token, right? I've built this before, actually. I have that repo on GitHub. I think I even made it public. But yeah, I built this aspect. Check if user has membership token, and if the user doesn't, log out. You can log in. If it does, sign them in. Also, would implement magic link using email from profile. Yeah, pretty straightforward, I think. All right. Yeah. Okay, let's head back. So this is this. Now let's move to the code base. It's time for me to embarrass myself and show you my bad code. Think what you want of my code. Share your perspective if you like. But yeah, I'm looking to learn, but I also understand that I intentionally made some concessions here around clean code to get things working first. And yeah, I'm generally that guy. I'll get things working before I figure out all those gymnastics. I don't like to obsess over unnecessary details. It's better you build, sometimes it's more beneficial to build something that doesn't work than to spend way more not that doesn't work, actually. Build something with a couple of quirks and then iterate on that than to spend so much time trying to build the perfect thing, because perfect thing doesn't really exist. But that's a philosophical argument for another day. Back to this. Yeah, so what I have here is I have the API basically using next auth for that, but that will become relevant when we move to the authentication layer. But basically, next Firebase auth gives us some middlewares that we're making use of easily. Now we have home. I'm using get layout here to apply the layout, and if you check my app.tsx, you would notice this, where I'm extracting the layout from the component, or I'm just rendering the page. We have Thirdweb as a wrapper here, which basically helps us with all the Web3 stuff right? And here, yeah, basic stuff. I don't think any of this needs explanation. I'm just gonna keep coding, and yeah, hope that it all makes sense. Anywhere, anytime it doesn't, speak to me. We'll figure it out, I think. Otherwise, let's go. Yeah, I found this interesting tool recently. Borrowing avatars. Mm, it gives you like this interesting avatars. Um, yeah, that you can use in your app. I don't know. I don't know why I find this cool, but I do. So we're going to use Beam because it creates some kind of interesting face, not marble. And yeah, let's get back to it. Let's get back to it. Okay. So that's what Philip looks like. Philip looks like. Layouts. Where you at? Beam. My name is not Philip Mitchell though, so let's stick with the boy scene, Cool. Gonna make this full screen. And here we go. Okay. So let's go task by task. First thing we're going to do is implement the add submission feature, which is going to be a single form with the 4 questions of the week. Cool. For forms, I generally tend to use Formic. I would most likely just copy over a template from something I built recently because there's no point setting things up just for the sake. I mean, you're watching, so I should probably show you what this is, but I would explain it if necessary. It's pretty straightforward. But yeah, okay. So we want to add a form submission. From my sketch, right? From the sketch I have, we need to add a button. First of all, we have a card up there for you to add this week. We need to add some max width here to the overflowing paragraph text. And then somewhere at the end, I have a button that says add your entry for the week. So I'll focus on that button because all the other things are yada stylistic changes that don't make the most impact. So let's go. Let's have it somewhere. You have this header. You have it under header. Yeah, let's keep it under header. Let's do a BR there. And let's use the button. So for the button, what's it going to be? Add submission. Okay. I'm going to do a lot of theming with all this later to just make sure things work right. But for now, let's do a size. Let's make that small. Why is it so big? Is this what small is like? So what does medium look like? Oh, I think I remember the issue. I changed my button styles. Okay, so let's keep it as small. I'm gonna show you what this looks like so you get some sense of how yeah, this works. So basically, typically we're using stitches for styling. Let me walk you through what that looks like. But when you go to styles here, stitches allows you to keep a stitches config where you can add lots of tokens used across your application. So you can see for my font sizes, I have all of them in there. My line height, I have everything in there. My fonts, I have all that in there. I have everything for my media queries. I have everything for, I even have utilities which allow me to use short form property labels for my styling. So when I want to do padding to rather than write this whole thing, I could just do PT, like aliases basically. PR, PB, and all of this would work just fine because of I created them. And I could theme as well. And creating a dark theme is as simple as this, and it will just swap out the variables as appropriate when the person toggles. But right now we're not doing all that. I'm just using the default dark theme for this, and then when it works, it's easy to make all those applications. But I just want to see why I like stitches and what the logic behind it is, how it works. And so you export all of these variables that you could now use across your application that based off this theming, right? So global styles is imported from that theme, and then we can use our global CSS to compile to implement all the global styles we want, right? Which is what I've done. How to build like components. If you go to something like alert, you would see that all you need to do is just create alert is a style div that does this, and exports it, and it's this. Now, in cases where you have variants, all you need to do is come down here and create a variance block. So I've created a variance block, and one of the variants I've created is variant, where I'm saying if you can set variants to primary, secondary, or outline, and to apply all of these styles conditionally. This could be used for active states. Hover state. No, yeah, hover already is accounted for in CSS, but you can use for active state, disabled, and all of those type of things as well if you want to have custom implementations for those. Yeah. So the problem here is I have I passed a variant called size, but I don't have size variants. I typically do. I stripped this down earlier, so we're going to bring it back. Typically, how you would do that is you put a size variant in here, and then you can specify what each size looks like. So you can say S looks like this, and you can say M looks like this. Right? And you see like the button will adjust accordingly once I set this, because now we have a variant of size that can be set to S or M, which means if I come back here and I switch this up to M, there should be an adjustment. Oh yeah, because we're not like setting body directly, we're setting outside, so I should be doing this. Aha. So we're gonna have M and we're gonna have S. Simple. So I'm gonna copy what I have over from another project. I just implemented, so we don't spend time on unnecessary things. In reality, actually, the ideal thing I would do here in a more, in quotes, formal code base, where like trying to make the best thing would be to have all of these as enums, so that we could, or at least as types. Yeah, it's enums basically, so that you can type that and use those variants outside of like use those variants outside of this file. But right now I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stick with this. And you can see me using P here. I tend not to like to use them anymore. When I first discovered them, I was a huge fan. And then over time, I'm no longer a huge fan because I like my code base to be readable by anyone. But I still have them in there. So size small, that works for me. And so we want to create a model that would pop up on this. So typically, I have my components by segmented in some ways. So I have my common components, I have layout, and then typically I would have components grouped by page. So I'm gonna do ship it, and in ship it I want to have add new submission model CSS. So I already have a model, which I made earlier, which is this guy. I just realized how much talking and coding is exhausting. I like to just code. Yeah, I should play some music, to be fair. Let's see. I need to be sure like what I'm about to do is not going to destroy the audio of this sound. So I have this thing called black hole that typically allows me to pass audio from my system into OBS. I don't know if it will work in this case, but